Take a deep, comfortable breath in, letting the cool air fill your lungs, and as you exhale, allow your body to completely settle into the softness of your bed. We are going to journey together into the remarkable science of rest, starting immediately with one of the most comforting sights in the natural world, the sleepy, sprawling yawns of lion cubs. Picture a young lion cub in the tall golden grass of the savanna, its soft fur warmed by the late afternoon sun. The cub's eyes grow heavy, and suddenly, it opens its jaw wide in a massive, deeply satisfying yawn. Isn't it absolutely fascinating that this simple, utterly relaxing motion is intimately connected to the very same neural networks functioning quietly inside your own brain right now? In the wild, lion cubs spend up to 20 hours a day sleeping and resting, a biological necessity because their rapidly developing brains require massive amounts of energy to form new connections. And that long, luxurious yawn is the gateway to their rest. For a long time, we didn't fully understand why mammals yawn. But a breakthrough in evolutionary psychology and neuroscience, pioneered by researcher Andrew Gallup in 2007, revealed the brain thermoregulation theory. When you, or our little lion cub, take in that massive gulp of ambient air during a yawn, it chills the blood circulating in the nasal and oral cavities. This freshly cooled blood is then delivered directly to the brain, lowering the temperature of the cerebral cortex by about 0.2 degrees Celsius. It is your brain's natural built-in air conditioning system. A cooler brain is a calmer brain, easing you gently into a state of transition. And think about the physical sensation of a yawn for a moment. Feel the memory of it in your own jaw and throat. When you yawn, your pharynx, the hollow tube inside your neck, undergoes a massive physical expansion, stretching up to 4 times its resting width. As this happens, you might have noticed a low, rushing rumble inside your ears. That comforting, ocean-like sound is caused by the contraction of a tiny muscle in your middle ear called the tensor tympani. As your jaw stretches open, the tensor tympani tenses up, vibrating softly and creating that quiet internal rumble that shuts out the noise of the outside world just for a second. And that physical stretch of the jaw and limbs that so often accompanies a yawn has a beautiful scientific name: pandiculation. Whether it is a lion cub extending its paws into the sun-baked earth, he or you stretching your arms overhead before slipping beneath the blankets, pandiculation serves a deeply restorative purpose. It activates the Golgi tendon organs, tiny sensory receptors located at the junctions between your muscles and tendons. When these organs are engaged, they send a specialized signal to your spinal cord to reset the resting length of your muscles, relieving the accumulated physical tension of the day. As the yawn draws to a close, the lungs fill deeply. The tiny air sacs within your lungs, the alveoli, expand fully. This deep expansion stimulates the vagus nerve, a magnificent wandering bundle of nerve fibers that travels from your brainstem all the way down into your abdomen. When the vagus nerve is gently squeezed and stimulated by a deep breath, it acts as a biological brake pedal in shifting your entire body into the parasympathetic nervous system, the soothing, rest and digest mode. You can actually feel this shift. It is that sudden wave of heaviness in your limbs, the softening of your shoulders, the feeling that you are perfectly safe and perfectly held. But perhaps the most wonderful thing about the sleepy yawns of lion cubs is what happens right after one cub yawns. If you were watching the pride, you would see a ripple effect. One cub yawns, and a moment later, its sibling's jaw drops open. Then the mother lion yawns. Contagious yawning is a profound psychological phenomenon, and it reveals the invisible threads of connection that bind mammals together. Inside your brain, behind your temples, sits a region called the inferior frontal gyrus. This area is rich with the mirror neuron system. Mirror neurons are extraordinary cells that fire not only when you perform an action, but also when you simply observe someone else performing that same action. When you see a yawn, or even just hear a description of a yawn, your mirror neurons invisibly practice the movement, blurring the line between you and the rest of the world. In a fascinating 2021 study on animal behavior, researchers observed that contagious yawning in lions serves an incredible survival purpose. It synchronizes the pride. The study found that when lions catch each other's yawns, the probability of the pride moving together and resting together increases by over 50%. It is a shared, nonverbal agreement to wind down, to rest, to be still. Your own brain processes contagious yawning through the amygdala, the almond-shaped cluster of nuclei deep within the temporal lobe that manages emotions. Increased activity in the amygdala during a contagious yawn links this behavior directly to your empathy networks. When you catch a yawn, it is a sign of a highly empathetic, socially connected brain. Yet, this empathy takes time to grow. Developmental psychologists have found that human children under the age of 4, and similarly infant lion cubs, do not actually catch yawns contagiously. This is because the intricate networks in the prefrontal cortex, responsible for the theory of mind, the ability to understand that others have perspectives and feelings different from our own, are still under construction. The contagious yawn is a biological privilege of growing up, a sign that your brain has learned to resonate with the calm and the rest of those around you. Imagine the sun dipping below the horizon on the savanna, painting the sky in deep bruises of purple and soft gold. As the light fades, a tiny structure nestled deep within the hypothalamus of both you and the lion cub begins to signal that it is time for sleep. This is the suprachiasmatic nucleus, a cluster of roughly 20,000 specialized neurons that act as the body's master clock. As the photoreceptors in your eyes detect the dimming light, this tiny clock orchestrates the release of sleep hormones, gently guiding your body temperature down and making your eyelids feel wonderfully heavy. As the lion pride huddles together in the cool evening grass, the physical warmth and proximity of their bodies trigger the release of oxytocin in the hypothalamus. Often called the bonding hormone, oxytocin dramatically lowers circulating cortisol, the stress hormone, washing the brain in a feeling of profound safety and trust. When you wrap yourself in a warm blanket or curl up in your own soft bed, your brain produces this exact same chemical cascade, soothing your nervous system and preparing you for the journey into sleep. When a lion cub finally closes its eyes and drifts off, its sleep architecture is remarkably busy. Newborn cubs spend nearly 50% of their sleep cycle in REM, or rapid eye movement sleep, compared to the roughly 20% experienced by human adults. This high volume of REM sleep is essential for the cub, as it is the phase where the brain aggressively builds and consolidates new neural pathways, turning the day's playful tumbles and explorations into permanent motor skills. During this vivid REM sleep, you might notice a sleeping cub's paws twitching or its whiskers fluttering, just as human eyes dart back and forth beneath closed lids. But the brain possesses an incredible protective mechanism to keep us safely in our beds. A small cluster of neurons in the brainstem called the locus coeruleus completely stops releasing a neurotransmitter called noradrenaline. The sudden absence of this chemical creates a state called muscle atonia, a gentle temporary paralysis of your voluntary muscles. It is a brilliant biological design, ensuring that while your mind runs, plays, and dreams of the savanna, your physical body remains incredibly still, safe, and entirely relaxed. Feel how heavy your own arms and legs are right now, yielding perfectly to gravity, trusting the bed beneath you. As you settle deeper, moving past the vivid dreams of REM, you and the sleeping cub enter the profoundly restorative phase of slow-wave sleep. If we were to look at the electrical activity of the cerebral cortex during this time, we would see delta waves. These are large, rolling electrical brain waves oscillating at a very slow, steady rhythm of 0.5 to 4 hertz. In this deeply peaceful state, the mind is quieted. To protect this fragile quiet, a structure deep in the center of your brain, called the thalamus, acts as a sensory gatekeeper. The thalamus begins to produce what neuroscientists call sleep spindles, sudden, brief bursts of brainwave activity that actually block external sensory information from reaching your conscious awareness. It is the thalamus that filters out the sound of the wind outside your window, or the rustle of the dry grass on the savanna, deciding that you are safe and that the noise does not need to wake you. Interestingly, there is one sense that bypasses this thalamic gatekeeper: your sense of smell. The olfactory bulb processes scents directly, routing them straight to the brain's emotional and memory centers, without asking the thalamus for permission. This is why a sleeping lion cub can still smell the comforting, familiar scent of its mother nearby, and why you can peacefully process the calming scent of rain outside or the clean fabric of your pillowcase, all while remaining deeply, beautifully asleep. The mind is always caring for you, always monitoring your safety, allowing you to let go completely. As the olfactory bulb quietly processes the familiar scents of your environment, allowing you to remain perfectly peaceful, it is worth looking back at how humans first tried to understand these deeply restful moments. For thousands of years, early thinkers observed the exact same heavy-lidded yawns of animals and humans, trying to decode their purpose. In the 4th century BCE, the ancient Greek physician Hippocrates wrote about yawning in his treatise on breath. He proposed that a long, deep yawn was the body's way to evacuate bad air and increase the flow of good air to the brain, comparing it to the way steam escapes from a boiling cauldron. While Hippocrates was using the best logic of his era, chewing, modern neuroscience has painted a far more intricate and beautiful picture. We now know that yawning does not change blood oxygen levels at all, disproving the century-old hypothesis of hypoxia that persisted until the 1980s. Instead, what you and the lion cub are experiencing is a highly sophisticated neurological mechanism linked to brain complexity. Consider a brilliant 2016 study published in the journal Biology Letters, where researchers from SUNY Oneonta analyzed the yawning habits of 109 different animal species. They discovered a measurable direct correlation between how long a mammal yawns and the number of neurons packed into its cerebral cortex. The more neurologically complex the animal, the longer the physical yawn. An adult lion, possessing roughly 250 million cortical neurons, executes a deeply satisfying stretch of the jaw that lasts an average of 4 to 5 seconds. This is just slightly shorter than a human's typical 6-second yawn. Those precious seconds are a biological signature of a highly developed, intricate mind, settling down for restoration. Field biologists who spend their lives observing big cats have noted that 80% of a lion cub's yawns occur at the distinct transitional edges of sleep, either immediately before dropping off or right after waking up. These yawns act as neurological state switchers, throughout the day as a young cub engages in intense play fighting and exploring the savanna. Its cells are burning through energy, breaking down a vital molecule called ATP. As ATP is consumed, a chemical byproduct called adenosine begins to accumulate in the basal forebrain. Adenosine creates what neuroscientists call sleep pressure. It binds to specific receptors, gradually turning down the volume on the brain's wakefulness regions. By the time the afternoon sun dips low, the cub's adenosine levels are peaking. The resulting massive yawn is the body's physical acknowledgement of this chemical buildup. Your own brain tracks adenosine in the exact same way. When you feel that gentle, irresistible weight behind your eyes at the end of a long day, it is simply your basal forebrain reading the chemical signals of a day well lived, gracefully inviting you to rest. Throughout history, early naturalists like the Roman author Pliny the Elder believed that lions slept for such long hours merely to digest massive meals. But modern chronobiology has revealed a much more elegant truth. Lions are polyphasic sleepers, meaning their 20 hours of daily rest are broken up into multiple segments across a 24-hour cycle. They do not merely sleep to digest, they sleep to support the immense developmental and thermal demands of their bodies. At birth, a lion cub's brain is only about 25% of its final adult volume, a proportion strikingly similar to that of human infants. To bridge that enormous developmental gap, the young brain requires staggering amounts of sleep to facilitate myelination. Deep within the brain's white matter, specialized glial cells called oligodendrocytes are hard at work while the cub slumbers. These vital cells wrap a fatty, insulating layer called myelin around the axons, the long fibers that connect nerve cells. This myelin sheath acts precisely like the insulation on a copper wire, preventing electrical signals from leaking and increasing the speed of neural transmission by up to 100 times. The most optimal environment for oligodendrocytes to perform this intricate wrapping process is during deep, uninterrupted sleep. Picture this process happening within your own mind tonight. Every new piece of information you learned today, every skill you practiced, is currently being insulated and solidified by these dedicated glial cells, strengthening the pathways of your memory. The study of how sleep protects our memories has a rich history of its own. In 1885, the German psychologist Hermann Ebbinghaus first demonstrated the forgetting curve, a graph showing how rapidly humans lose newly acquired information. However, Ebbinghaus noticed a curious anomaly in his data. The steep decline of memory loss abruptly halted whenever his subjects slept. We now understand the precise anatomy behind his 19th century observation. During deep, slow-wave rest, your hippocampus, the seahorse-shaped memory center, engages in a continuous dialogue with the neocortex. This process, known as systems consolidation, physically transfers short-term, fragile memories from the hippocampus into the sturdy, long-term storage of the neocortical networks. Historically, humans assumed that when we closed our eyes, the brain essentially powered down into a passive, silent state. That perspective changed entirely in 1953, when researchers Eugene Oserinsky and Nathaniel Kleitman at the University of Chicago were studying sleeping infants. They noticed the infants' eyes darting wildly beneath their closed eyelids, leading to the groundbreaking discovery of REM, or rapid eye movement sleep. We finally understood that the sleeping brain is spectacularly active. In fact, during certain phases of the night, your brain consumes up to 20% of your body's total energy, nearly matching its wakeful demands. What is happening now is a profound internal maintenance protocol. To understand this, imagine the brain during these resting hours as a grand ancient library that has just closed to the public for the evening. Throughout the day, thousands of visitors have wandered the aisles, pulling books from shelves, leaving notes on tables, and generating a chaotic hum of activity. When the doors finally lock, the real work begins. In 2012, a neuroscientist named Maiken Nedergaard discovered this exact after-hours cleaning mechanism, naming it the glymphatic system. During deep sleep, the spaces between your brain cells actually expand by an astonishing 60%. This physical expansion allows clear, nutrient-rich cerebrospinal fluid to rush through the brain tissue. Like a team of quiet custodians moving through the aisles of our imagined library, sweeping the floors and gently returning books to their proper places, this fluid sweeps away cellular byproducts and metabolic waste that have accumulated during the day. This vital process operates 10 times faster while you sleep than when you are awake. Notice how comforting it is to know that your body handles all of this automatically. The medulla oblongata, a small structure in your brainstem, quietly regulates your autonomous breathing cycle, slowing your respiratory rate by up to 15% during deep non-REM stages. You do not have to consciously direct your breath. The medulla ensures an even, steady rhythm, matching the calm, rising and falling of a lion cub's chest in the tall savanna grass. In the 1970s, pioneering ethologists like George Schaller documented the social resting behaviors of the Serengeti lions. He observed a specific greeting ceremony that occurs just before the pride settles down for their most profound periods of rest. The lions engage in gentle head rubbing, leaning their weight against one another, followed by synchronized yawning. This physical touch stimulates the release of endorphins and serotonin, lowering heart rates across the entire group. Deep within your own nervous system, similar chemical shifts are taking place simply by resting in a comfortable, quiet environment. The basal ganglia, a cluster of neurons involved in coordinating movement, actively suppresses motor signals, ensuring your muscles remain relaxed and heavy. You are supported entirely by the incredibly precise, elegant architecture of your own neurobiology, allowing the day to fade gently into the background as restoration takes priority. As the basal ganglia faithfully quiets your motor signals, consider the way a house slowly powers down for the evening. Room by room, the lights are switched off, the doors are locked, and the ambient noise fades into a comfortable hush. Inside your mind, a specific cluster of neurons, known as the ventrolateral preoptic nucleus, or VLPO, serves as your biological dimmer switch. When it is time to rest, the VLPO becomes highly active, secreting a powerful inhibitory neurotransmitter called GABA. Like a hand slowly sliding a mechanical dimmer switch downward, GABA systematically reduces the electrical excitability of the surrounding neurons, gently dimming the bright, busy consciousness of your waking hours. What happens next resembles a highly sophisticated automatic climate control system. To initiate deep rest, your core body temperature must drop by roughly 1 to 2 degrees Fahrenheit. To achieve this, your brain triggers a physiological process called distal vasodilation. The blood vessels in your extremities, your hands and feet, widen, acting exactly like household radiators, to release excess internal warmth into the surrounding air. When observing a pride of lions, you can see this thermal regulation dictating their physical behavior. A drowsy cub, fresh from a massive jaw-stretching yawn, will often sprawl completely flat on its back, exposing its thinly furred belly to the cooling evening breeze. By stretching out, the cub maximizes its heat loss. Conversely, if the savanna air turns chilly, the cub will curl into a tight sphere, reducing its exposed surface area by up to 30% to aggressively conserve body heat. Your own body naturally seeks out this perfect thermal equilibrium tonight, perhaps prompting you to pull a blanket closer or push a foot outside the covers, constantly communicating with the temperature of the room. Picture that sleepy cub leaning heavily against its mother, nursing in the twilight. As the warm milk fills its stomach, a hormone called cholecystokinin, or CCK, floods its system. CCK is released by the upper small intestine within 15 to 30 minutes of consuming food. While we often associate post-meal drowsiness with heavy carbohydrates or large portions, it is actually the spike in CCK that travels directly up the vagus nerve to bind with receptors in the brain, chemically commanding the nervous system to rest and digest. We experience this exact same biological cascade when you feel that comfortable, heavy lethargy after a warm evening meal or a soothing cup of tea. You are feeling the gentle sedative effects of CCK smoothing out the sharp edges of your wakefulness. Observe how external sounds begin to lose their significance as you settle further into the mattress. In the second stage of non-REM sleep, your brain actively installs the equivalent of acoustic soundproofing. These are the sleep spindles we touched upon previously, but looking closer, we see that these spindles are rapid bursts of brainwave activity, oscillating precisely between 12 and 14 hertz. Think of these high-frequency bursts as thick, dense foam panels lining the walls of a professional recording studio. They actively absorb and deflect incoming sensory noise, preventing it from reaching the auditory cortex. If a sudden, slightly louder noise occurs, perhaps a dry branch snapping in the wild or the wood of your home settling, the brain deploys a K-complex. K-complexes are the single largest electrical events observed in a healthy human electroencephalogram. They function exactly like a heavy-duty electrical surge protector, absorbing the sudden spike of sensory input and immediately suppressing cortical arousal. And this brilliant mechanism ensures the fragile continuity of your sleep cycle remains unbroken. Deep within a huddled lion pride, the rhythmic rising and falling of the mother's chest provides a steady, rocking motion for the cubs sleeping against her side. A 2018 study published in the journal Current Biology demonstrated that this kind of rhythmic oscillation directly influences the brain's internal architecture. The researchers found that a gentle, side-to-side rocking synchronizes the vestibular system in the inner ear with the brain's sleep centers, naturally increasing both the density of those soundproofing sleep spindles and the overall duration of deep, slow-wave sleep. Even the subtle rhythmic expansion of your own lungs tonight, or the steady beating of your heart, provides this internal rocking motion, lulling the central nervous system into a state of profound security. Consider the mental chatter you experience throughout the day, the planning, the remembering, the internal monologue. This activity is governed by the default mode network, an interconnected web of brain regions spanning the medial prefrontal cortex and the posterior cingulate cortex. Think of this network as a busy radio station, constantly broadcasting updates about your life. As sleep pressure mounts, this broadcasting station gradually loses its power supply. The functional connectivity within the default mode network drastically decreases, effectively tuning the dial away from the busy station until there is only the quiet, peaceful static of a resting mind. Concurrently, the cardiovascular system demonstrates an elegant shift in its rhythm. During the deepest stages of non-REM rest, Cardiologists measure a phenomenon known as heart rate variability, or HRV. While it might seem counterintuitive, a highly variable heartbeat during sleep is the sign of a perfectly relaxed biological engine. It indicates that the parasympathetic nervous system is in full control, allowing the heart to subtly speed up when you inhale and slow down when you exhale, rather than rigidly beating like a mechanical metronome. Your heart rate can drop safely to 50 or 60 beats per minute, mirroring the quiet, rhythmic idling of a car engine parked safely in the garage for the night. A sleeping cub's resting heart rate experiences this exact same parasympathetic dominance, allowing its cardiovascular system to recover from the intense physical exertion of a life spent running and playing in the grass. At the threshold of dreams, the mind prepares its internal theater. The transition into REM sleep is heralded by the arrival of PGO waves, pontogeniculo-occipital waves. These distinct electrical spikes originate in the brainstem's pons, travel upward through the lateral geniculate nucleus, and finally illuminate the occipital lobe at the very back of your head. Compare this to a skilled projectionist threading the first reel of celluloid film through a projector and switching on the bright white bulb. These waves are the light source of your dreams, providing the vivid visual imagery that plays across your mind's eye. While this internal cinema lights up, the external visual systems are completely shut down. A lion possesses a specialized reflective layer behind its retina called the tapetum lucidum, granting it night vision up to 6 times more sensitive than ours. Yet, during deep slumber, the optic nerve ceases to transmit signals entirely, granting even the sharpest eyes on the savanna a well-deserved reprieve. This selective filtering extends to the sense of touch. Lion cubs possess highly specialized whiskers called vibrissae, which are rooted 3 times deeper into the skin than normal fur and are packed with thousands of sensitive nerve endings. During the day, these vibrissae can detect the slightest shift in air currents. But during deep sleep, the somatosensory cortex, the brain region responsible for processing physical sensation, turns down its receptive fields. It is like lowering the sensitivity dial on a microphone. The cub can sleep comfortably through the brushing of dry grass against its face, just as you can sleep peacefully while the soft, heavy fabric of your blankets rests against your skin. Once the architecture of rest is fully established, the biological night shift begins its most vital work. Entering deep, slow-wave sleep is like handing the keys of a towering skyscraper over to a dedicated nocturnal maintenance crew after all the daytime office workers have gone home. During this phase, the pituitary gland releases up to 70% of its daily output of human growth hormone. Simultaneously, the brain completely suppresses the production of somatostatin, a chemical that normally inhibits growth. With the inhibitor safely removed, growth hormone floods the bloodstream, repairing microscopic muscle tears, fortifying bone density, and synthesizing new proteins. A young cub literally grows taller and stronger while it sleeps in the dirt, and your own body actively repairs the cellular wear and tear of your waking hours. The resources of your body are completely reallocated, turning away from the demands of the outside world and prioritizing your internal physical restoration above everything else. At this very moment, as the internal maintenance protocols of your physical form take precedence, another subtle yet profound transformation is occurring within the chemistry of your emotions. To fully appreciate this shift, reflect on your own life. Have you ever felt utterly overwhelmed by a problem late at night, only to wake up the next morning feeling strangely capable, as if the sharp edges of your worry had been sanded down? This is not merely the passage of time. It is a measurable, neurochemical service provided by your dreaming brain, a mechanism equally crucial to a young lion learning to navigate the savanna as it is to you navigating your daily life. Deep within the temporal lobes, the locus coeruleus, the very same structure that kindly paralyzes your muscles during REM to keep you safely in bed, performs a secondary, miraculous function. During the daylight hours, this region constantly secretes norepinephrine, a neurotransmitter closely related to adrenaline that keeps you alert, reactive, and sometimes stressed. But when you finally cross the threshold into REM rest, the locus coeruleus shuts down this production completely. For a few precious hours, the level of stress chemistry in your brain drops to zero. It is during this perfectly calm, zero-stress state that the hippocampus begins its overnight filing system. It takes the memories of your day, both the pleasant moments and the difficult ones, and replays them to the prefrontal cortex. Because these memories are being processed in an environment entirely devoid of norepinephrine, your brain effectively strips away the visceral, emotional charge of the event, keeping only the factual data. A 2011 study from the University of California, Berkeley, coined this process overnight therapy. The researchers found that after a full night of sleep, rich in REM, subjects demonstrated a 33% reduction in emotional reactivity when shown the same distressing images they had viewed the previous day. Think of REM sleep as a master restorative artist working on an ancient, brightly colored painting. The artist gently applies a specialized solvent, lifting away the harsh, glaring varnish of daily stress, leaving behind only the clear, defined lines of wisdom and experience. For a growing cub, this means the memory of a frightening encounter with a larger predator, or the frustration of missing a playful pounce, is retained as a valuable survival lesson, but stripped of the paralyzing fear that accompanied the original event. For you, it means your mind is actively detaching the anxiety from yesterday's memories, ensuring you wake up equipped with knowledge rather than burdened by emotion. The implications of this overnight emotional recalibration are profound when we look at the bigger picture of our lives. By protecting our emotional equilibrium, sleep fosters a mindset of curiosity and resilience. We see this vividly in the animal kingdom. A well-rested lion pride is characterized by high levels of social grooming, playful wrestling, and complex cooperative hunting strategies. Scientists studying animal behavior have long recognized the critical role of the spindle neurons, also known as von Economo neurons, in these complex social interactions. These large cigar-shaped cells act as high-speed relay stations, connecting the anterior cingulate cortex to the frontoinsular cortex. They allow mammals to intuitively read social cues, process trust, and engage in cooperative behavior. Interestingly, neuroscientists have found that sleep deprivation causes the firing rate of these specific von Economo neurons to become sluggish and unsynchronized. When you prioritize rest, you are essentially maintaining the high-speed fiber optic cables of your empathy network. A 2010 study published in the journal Sleep demonstrated that well-rested individuals scored dramatically higher on emotional intelligence tests, showing a remarkable ability to accurately read facial expressions and vocal tones. The quality of your sleep directly dictates the quality of your social connections, allowing you to be a more patient friend, a more observant partner, and a more engaged participant in the world around you. Let us explore another remarkable transformation happening right now in your cerebral cortex: the strengthening of your creative problem-solving abilities. During the day, your brain relies heavily on a focused, logical network, firing signals down well-worn familiar pathways. But as you sink deeper into non-REM sleep, your brain chemistry changes. Levels of acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter vital for focused attention, drop significantly. Simultaneously, the neural connections between distant, seemingly unrelated areas of the brain become highly fluid. Imagine your daytime mind as a train running strictly along a predetermined track, moving efficiently from point A to point B. The sleeping mind, however, lifts the train off the tracks entirely, allowing it to glide freely across the landscape, drawing novel connections between distant points. This neural flexibility is responsible for what psychologists call sleep-dependent insight. In a classic 2004 study published in the journal Nature, researchers tasked participants with solving complex math puzzles. Some participants were allowed to sleep for 8 hours, while others were kept awake. The results were astounding. The rested participants were more than twice as likely to discover a hidden, elegant shortcut to solve the puzzle compared to those who stayed awake. The sleeping brain had quietly analyzed the problem, cross-referenced it with millions of other memories, and synthesized a creative solution. A lion cub relies on this exact same mechanism to learn the intricate physics of a successful hunt. The mechanics of stalking, the precise calculation of distance, the timing of a pounce, these are incredibly complex variables. During the long hours of the afternoon slumber, the cub's motor cortex replays the physical sensations of its daytime play, optimizing the neural pathways and finding more efficient, creative ways to move its body. When you lay down to rest, you are giving your own mind the space to connect the dots of your life, solving the subtle puzzles you couldn't crack while awake. To support this massive computational effort, the brain requires an incredible amount of fuel. Yet, while sleeping, we cannot eat. This presents a fascinating biological paradox. How does a massive lion, or a human being, sustain the intense energy demands of a reorganizing brain without consuming calories? The answer lies in the liver and a specialized storage molecule called glycogen. Now, before you even feel sleepy, your body anticipates the long fast of the night. During the evening, your liver converts glucose from your evening meal into glycogen, packing it tightly into storage cells. As you sleep, a hormone called glucagon acts like a slow-release valve, steadily converting that stored glycogen back into glucose and dripping it into your bloodstream at a precise measured rate. This ensures your brain has a constant, steady supply of premium fuel to power the intense electrical activity of REM sleep and memory consolidation. This perfect internal economy is further supported by a remarkable shift in your breathing patterns. As you transition into the deepest stages of slow-wave sleep, your respiratory volume, the amount of air you take in with each breath, decreases by roughly 20%. Because your voluntary muscles are entirely relaxed and your core temperature has dropped, your body requires significantly less oxygen. The diaphragm, the large sheet of muscle beneath your lungs, takes over completely, moving in a slow, rhythmic, highly efficient cadence. This shift to diaphragmatic breathing naturally engages the lower lobes of the lungs, which are incredibly rich in parasympathetic nerve receptors. Every time your diaphragm pulls down, drawing air deep into the base of your lungs, it sends a reinforcing signal of safety to the brainstem. This is the physiological anchor of deep rest. It is the same slow, steady rhythm you can observe in the flank of a sleeping animal, the quiet, powerful engine of life, operating at its most efficient, peaceful setting. Your body, right now, is a masterpiece of energy conservation and internal renewal, quietly preparing you for whatever the next day may bring. Why, you might wonder, does a sleeping lion cub occasionally flick its ear or twitch its tail while deeply submerged in rest? To answer this, we must look at the fascinating interplay between the motor cortex and the brainstem during the later stages of sleep. These tiny, sudden movements are known as myoclonic twitches, and they serve a critical developmental purpose. Researchers at the University of Iowa, observing the sleep habits of infant mammals, discovered that these twitches are entirely different from waking movements. When awake, the brain commands a muscle to move, and sensory feedback confirms the action. But during sleep, the process is inverted. The brainstem fires a spontaneous signal down the spinal cord, causing a sudden twitch in a limb, a whisker, or an ear. The resulting sensory feedback travels back up to the developing cerebral cortex. The brain uses this spontaneous data to essentially map the physical boundaries of the body, creating an intricate internal topography of joints, tendons, and muscles. A twitching paw teaches the sleeping brain precisely where that paw is located in three-dimensional space, even with the eyes firmly shut. As you rest tonight, your own brain is similarly mapping and recalibrating the complex network of your physical form, ensuring that when you wake, your movements remain graceful and coordinated. Let us examine the extraordinary chemical shift that occurs in the brain's reward centers as the night progresses. In the waking world, our behaviors are largely driven by a neurotransmitter called dopamine, produced in the substantia nigra. Dopamine motivates us to seek out food, social interaction, and new experiences. However, during the deepest phases of slow-wave sleep, dopamine production plummets. In its place, a different neuromodulator takes the stage: galanin. Galanin is a neuropeptide that specifically targets the brain's arousal systems, acting as a potent, natural tranquilizer. In a fascinating 2014 study published in the journal Nature Neuroscience, researchers identified the precise circuits where galanin operates. They found that galanin actively inhibits the histamine system in the tubero-mammillary nucleus, the very system that allergy medications try to suppress to make us drowsy. By flooding these circuits with galanin, the brain essentially self-medicates, ensuring a profound, unbroken state of tranquility. Notice how the physical sensations of rest are intricately tied to these chemical changes. The heavy, warm feeling in your limbs, the softening of your facial muscles. These are the direct result of galanin and GABA working in concert to silence the busy chatter of your waking neurochemistry. You are experiencing the ultimate biological definition of safety. To fully understand the depth of this safety, consider the phenomenon of unihemispheric sleep. While humans are bihemispheric sleepers, meaning our entire cerebral cortex powers down simultaneously, many marine mammals and some birds possess the incredible ability to sleep with only one half of their brain at a time. The other half remains awake, alert to predators and environmental changes. For a long time, scientists wondered if terrestrial predators like lions possessed this ability, given the dangers of the African savanna. Extensive electroencephalogram studies on big cats have revealed that while they do not experience true unihemispheric sleep, they engage in a fascinating hybrid state called asymmetrical slow-wave sleep. During this phase, one hemisphere of the brain produces significantly denser and deeper delta waves than the other. The lighter sleeping hemisphere remains subtly tethered to the environment, particularly tuned to high-frequency sounds like the snap of a twig or the distant alarm call of a bird. This asymmetry is regulated by the reticular activating system, a network of neurons in the brainstem that acts as a volume control for sensory input. When a lion cub sleeps surrounded by the physical warmth and familiar scent of its pride, The reticular activating system lowers the volume completely, allowing both hemispheres to sink into profound, symmetrical rest. The presence of the pride is the biological cue that vigilance is no longer required. Your own brain responds to environmental cues in exactly the same way. The familiar texture of your pillowcase, the specific scent of your own bedroom, the weight of a favorite blanket. These sensory details are processed by the olfactory bulb and the somatosensory cortex, sending a powerful signal to your reticular activating system that you are in a secure environment. The volume of the outside world is turned down because your brain recognizes the deeply ingrained signature of safety. Deep within the temporal lobe, nestled alongside the hippocampus, sits the amygdala. We often discuss the amygdala in the context of fear or stress, but it plays a crucial role in the architecture of pleasant dreams. During REM sleep, while the rational, logical prefrontal cortex is largely offline, the amygdala becomes highly active, processing the emotional tone of your memories. A 2018 study conducted at the Max Planck Institute for Human Cognitive and Brain Sciences utilized advanced functional magnetic resonance imaging to observe the sleeping brain. The researchers discovered a fascinating dynamic. When the amygdala interacts with the reward centers of the ventral striatum during REM, it generates dreams characterized by intense, positive emotions. These are the dreams of flying, of joyous reunions, or of simple, profound contentment. And the brain is actively synthesizing the feeling of joy, untethered from the logical constraints of the waking world. Imagine the sleeping lion cub, its paws twitching as it dreams. The same activation in the amygdala and ventral striatum paints a vivid internal landscape. Perhaps a successful playful chase through the tall grass, or the comforting warmth of the midday sun. The mind is not merely resting, it is actively generating positive emotional experiences, fortifying its capacity for joy and resilience. The immune system, too, seizes this period of profound rest to execute its most critical functions. While you sleep, the production of T cells, the specialized white blood cells that identify and destroy pathogens, increases dramatically. This process is governed by a complex interaction between the brain's circadian clock and the immune system. Specifically during deep sleep, the level of a chemical called integrin in the bloodstream spikes. Integrins are sticky proteins that allow T cells to attach to and neutralize infected cells. A landmark 2019 study in the Journal of Experimental Medicine demonstrated that sleep-deprived individuals showed a significant decrease in integrin activation, meaning their immune cells were less effective at grasping and destroying targets. By simply surrendering to rest, you are providing your body with the precise hormonal environment needed to optimize its defenses. The quiet, rhythmic breathing, the lowered body temperature, the profound stillness. These are the optimal conditions for the immune system to perform its intricate, microscopic work, ensuring that you wake up stronger and healthier than when you laid down. The symphony of restoration occurring within you right now is a marvel of evolutionary design. The thalamus stands guard, filtering the sensory world. The hippocampus orchestrates the transfer of memory. The glymphatic system cleanses the cellular landscape, while galanin and GABA quiet the mind. From the sudden developmental twitch of a limb to the sophisticated emotional recalibration of overnight therapy, your brain is engaged in a magnificent, life-sustaining endeavor. It is the same quiet miracle occurring beneath the vast, starlit sky of the savanna, binding the rest of a tiny cub to the profound universal necessity of sleep. This magnificent symphony of restoration unfolds in a highly organized, sequential process, guiding you downward like a gentle biological staircase. The transition from the busy waking world into profound rest does not happen all at once. Instead, it is a meticulously choreographed sequence of events, a cascade of neurochemical shifts that occur step by step, ensuring that both you and the tired lion cub are safely, securely cradled in sleep. The very first step in this process begins with the alteration of your brainwaves. Right now, behind your closed eyelids, your cerebral cortex is gradually stepping down its electrical output. During your active day, your mind hummed with beta waves, rapidly oscillating at 15 to 30 hertz as you processed information and solved problems. But as you lie here, settling into the stillness, those rapid waves have sequentially slowed into an alpha rhythm, gently pulsing between 8 and 12 hertz. This is the exact frequency of relaxation, the very first electrical marker that the journey into rest has commenced. Simultaneously, a precise sequence of timekeeping is unfolding deep within your endocrine system. This process actually began hours ago, initiated by the fading of the afternoon light. Melanopsin-containing retinal ganglion cells in your eyes registered the dimming environment, sending a specific time-stamped message along the retinohypothalamic tract, directly to the suprachiasmatic nucleus. From there, the signal traveled down into your neck to the superior cervical ganglion, before finally routing back up to the pineal gland. Step by step, the pineal gland responds to this pathway by chemically converting stored serotonin into melatonin. Now, melatonin does not forcibly sedate you. Rather, it acts as an internal biological usher, unlocking and opening the sleep gate to allow the physical processes of rest to proceed. While the sleep gate opens, a corresponding shutdown sequence occurs in the lateral hypothalamus. Within this region sits a highly specialized, tiny population of roughly 70,000 neurons that produce orexin, also known as hypocretin. Orexin is the vital neuropeptide responsible for maintaining your waking arousal. As the evening progresses, these neurons systematically reduce their firing rate, lowering the concentration of orexin in your brain. As these levels drop, the internal switch for wakefulness gracefully flips to the off position, removing the final barriers to sleep. For a young lion cub out on the savanna, this internal chemical cascade culminates in a highly specific behavioral sequence. The signature sleepy yawn we have explored begins with a localized release of oxytocin in the paraventricular nucleus of the hypothalamus. This triggers the massive, jaw-dropping intake of air. Immediately following the yawn, the cub initiates pandiculation, sequentially stretching its front legs, arching its back, and extending its hindquarters. Finally, this physical process ends with the cub curling its body inward and tucking its small nose securely beneath its tail, or paws. This final action of tucking the nose is a brilliant sequential act of thermoregulation. By burying its face, the cub captures its own exhaled body heat, pre-warming the ambient air before it is inhaled. The preoptic area of the cub's brain, which strictly monitors temperature, reads this consistently warm airflow as an ultimate signal of environmental safety, stabilizing the sleep cycle for the long night ahead. You experience a similar sequence of physical comfort as you settle into your bed. As the heavy fabrics cover your body, the thermoreceptors embedded in your skin detect the accumulated warmth. This sensory data travels sequentially up the spinothalamic tract of your spinal cord, arriving directly at the insula, a region tucked deep within the cerebral cortex. The insula processes this tactile data, translating the physical sensation of warmth into a profound psychological feeling of security and peace. Next, the mechanical rhythm of your body yields to automatic control. The pre-Bötzinger complex, a small, elegant cluster of neurons located in the medulla oblongata, seamlessly takes over the regulation of your breath. Step by step, it smooths out the irregular, conscious breathing patterns of your waking hours. It establishes a highly regular, slow rhythm, incrementally dropping your overall respiratory rate by a measurable 15 to 20%. The diaphragm moves with a quiet, steady persistence, matching the slow, even rising and falling of a lion cub's flank in the quiet grass. As the physical body quiets, the architecture of your sleep cycles begins to unfold. A lion cub progresses through this sequence rapidly. Because they require immense amounts of restorative growth, their internal clocks compress the stages of light sleep, slow wave rest, and REM into a tight loop lasting approximately 45 to 60 minutes. This allows the growing animal to experience multiple, rapid sequences of physical and cognitive recovery throughout a single afternoon. Your own biological cycles unfold more gradually, with your nervous system taking roughly 90 minutes to complete one perfect, restorative loop. During the deepest phase of this loop, a remarkable three-step cleansing sequence occurs, a process beautifully documented in a 2020 study by researchers at Boston University utilizing advanced functional neuroimaging. They mapped the exact chronological sequence of the brain's nighttime maintenance. Step 1. Your neurons fire a massive, synchronized, slow electrical wave. Step 2. The volume of blood in your brain physically drops, pulling back to create additional space within the cranial vault. Step 3. Exactly 2 seconds after the electrical wave, a massive pulse of clear cerebrospinal fluid rushes into the newly created space, sweeping through the neural tissue and clearing away the cellular byproducts of the day. This precise three-step rhythm repeats over and over, purifying the mind while you rest peacefully. Concurrently, the transfer of your daytime experiences into permanent knowledge unfolds through a three-part electrical dialogue. To safely package a memory, neocortical slow oscillations, pulsing gently at 0.5 to 1 Hz, issue a quiet command to the thalamus. Upon receiving this signal, the thalamus responds by generating sleep spindles, rapid bursts firing between 12 and 15 Hz. These spindles then cascade downward, triggering the hippocampus to fire sharp wave ripples, incredibly fast electrical bursts oscillating at 100 to 200 Hz. And this exact sequential transmission takes the fragile short-term memories of your day and ships them securely into the permanent structural archives of the cortex. Before the mind transitions into the vivid landscapes of dreams, it initiates a final sequence of physical protection. As you approach REM sleep, the ventromedial medulla sends a cascade of two specific inhibitory neurotransmitters, glycine and GABA, straight down the pathways of your spinal cord. These chemicals bind directly to your motor neurons, sequentially turning off your ability to move your voluntary muscles. It is an exquisite sequential locking mechanism that keeps the dreaming lion cub from running out into the savanna and keeps you resting perfectly still, profoundly safe in the sanctuary of your room. Everything is unfolding exactly as it should. Your mind is perfectly managing every necessary step of this magnificent journey. From the gradual slowing of your breath to the microscopic sweeping of cellular space, your physical form is deeply engaged in the quiet, triumphant work of restoration. You do not need to oversee this process. You do not need to command your heart to beat or your memories to store. You can simply surrender to the sequence. The day is entirely complete. The heavy, warm weight in your limbs is a testament to the safety of this moment. The gentle, cooling breath moving through your airways is the rhythm of a nervous system at absolute peace. The sleep gate is wide open, inviting you to cross the threshold, just as the tired lion cub yields to the soft earth beneath the setting sun. Allow the quiet sequence of rest to carry you downward. Your biology is an ancient, faithful protector, wrapping you in the profound comfort of deep, uninterrupted slumber. Every system is aligned, every shadow is calm. Surrender entirely to the peace of this unfolding night. Good night.